I'm Haley. I'm an actor in Los Angeles.
Hi, I'm Indiana, and I am a cinematographer in Los Angeles.
We're the Topanga Collective.
We are indeed.
We realized that there was a big hole in actor training. I've been an actor for a very long time, and we realized that there's something very important that actors don't know and aren't taught, and that no one really realizes that they don't know it, right?
Yeah, I think it's just from a technical standpoint of being within the camera world. I work with a variety of actors. Some are obviously more experienced and seasoned than others, and then there are newer ones. And I'd say it's not about their ability to actually act and perform, it's their ability to recognize the technical requirements um, that an actor really has when involved in filmmaking, different than stage and theater, obviously. So I've always noticed that like the most experienced actors have an idea of the relationships they have to form on set, as well as the technical tools that are available to them and that we supply as DPs and operators and all of us. So this was to fill that gap because you and I had a conversation about how I had like just come off a feature film, and I was talking about how I won't go into specifics, but there was like an issue with one of the actors, and Haley was like, "Well, yeah, what is that?" And I'm like, "Oh," and we were talking about like lenses or something, and
Yeah, it was like a lens swap, and this actor didn't know that they had to kind of change their movement, and I was like, why though?
Yeah.
Why did they need to do that? Because we go to acting class, we go to conservatory programs where we learn
so many classes
how to act really well on a big stage where the shot is always the wide. So
Yeah.
you can do whatever you need to do, and
Yeah.
you're doing it one time a night, so you don't have to worry about cutting in and cutting out and continuity and things like that. And there's an understanding that that's something that happens on set, but there's no actual training for how to deal with it.
Yeah, and I'm not friends with a ton of actors, and so when you always talk about the different classes you're doing, I assume it involved the technical because it's just such a huge part of my life as a filmmaker, but I assumed for actors it would be too, because I know that there are differences in performance that have to happen with different lenses or with different kinds of light or stepping on your mark to hit that spotlight or beam. And that's when we realized there wasn't.
Yeah, and in conversations with other people who work on the technical side of film, we explained this, and it seems like everyone we spoke to was surprised that actors weren't taught this. They're like,
Yeah.
I've noticed that more experienced actors seem to really understand how important it is, but it's almost like they thought that younger actors were just like, well, I don't get it, so I don't care. And that's not the case.
Yeah, and we've done 8 classes. We have 25 classes planned to host on this online platform, Cinematography for Actors, which is going to launch at the end of September 2022. But one of the most exciting classes I think that we have on offer is the Directors Roundtable, because we're seeing how different directing styles actually call for actors adapting to the technical requirements of that style. And I don't think that's something that's taught, because you're not obviously taught by directors a lot of the time.
You are never taught by directors.
Yeah. And so this, 2-hour class was kind of mind-blowing, I think, from an actor perspective when we were reflecting on it while editing. And it's a really exciting thing to offer, that we're almost like merging this breakdown of communication that's happening. We're just trying to get rid of that between actor and DP, because we don't form connections outside of set a lot of the time. Like, there's no reason we would meet otherwise, then it's just like a party we hang out at.
As far as like friendships and communities
Exactly.
that you build.
Yeah. And so the idea of forming those relationships by understanding the technical, so it's quicker when you get on set that you know what those requirements are, is a really cool thing that just hasn't existed up until we've created this course.
Yeah, I think that there is a bit of intimidation for actors when they step onto a set, because they know all of like the flowy art side of how to tell a story.
Mm-hmm.
But we step onto set and we know that there's an entire camera crew that knows so much, knows intimate details about this magic box that is pointing at us. And so it almost feels like you don't know how to start talking to a camera crew or to a DP, because the conversations will be so technical and it's very intimidating, especially once you have a job, to be able to stand on that set and be like, what's that? Like, it almost feels against the rules.
Yeah.
So during our director roundtable, one of the directors mentioned that a lot of actors cover up that intimidation with ego, which makes sense. If you're uncomfortable and you feel bad that you don't know something and you don't realize that it's not your fault, you may feel like you have to kind of put on an air. And then, of course, the crew doesn't feel like they can help you understand these things because now you have an attitude and you're just difficult to work with.
Yeah. And you're more isolated from the conversations that people would have wanted to have with you.
Yeah.
A DP's not going to feel that they're going to come up to you because they don't think you're going to be receptive.
Yes.
And
as well as some directors who we spoke with mentioned that they choose to shield actors from the technical on the day.
Yeah.
Because if they try to give an actor a technical note, that puts the actor into their head, because of course it does. You're being asked to do something that you've only just learned is something that's necessary.
It doesn't
feel
like
you're going
second
to be
nature.
pulled out. You're going to feel like you can't move. So yeah, of course, if they have to get a shot on a day, they're not going to throw a whole new, like brand new playbook at you. They're just going to say, do what you do, and then talk to the camera crew and be like, work with it as much as you can. But I know that actors don't want you to have to do that for them. Actors are A students for the most part. Actors want to do a very good job for you. And I think most of the time, if they knew that that conversation was happening, it would crush them because they want so badly to do a good job.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm hoping that this will be a really great tool for actors to be able to know and then figure out how to practice the technical things so they don't get into their head and they don't end up putting on an attitude to protect themselves.
Yeah. I think one of the craziest things that I heard recently when you and I were out was we had just met another actor, Stephanie, and we were all talking in the basement of Soho Warehouse and whatever, jazz night. But the craziest thing that, DPs I think are mostly unaware of unless we've dated actors is that I think there's an issue from the stem of the education where you told me that it's very common that there are classes you will take where you stand at the front of the class and people like try and get you to cry or insult you enough.
There is a method. I haven't done it very often because I am too delicate, but there is a method where yes, you'll come in on the first day. There are two different reasons. There's, typing can feel pretty brutal, but you have to learn how to take it because typing means understanding basically the roles that you are fit to play by the essence that you give off, mm-hmm. or the look on your face, the sound of your voice. So often a teacher will be pretty brutal about what you look like. If you're not ready to hear that, that can be hurtful. The essence you give off, the type of roles you should be going out for, and some actors aren't ready for that. There is also another method, which is what Steffi was talking about. It's basically meant to break down all of your walls, and if it's done irresponsibly, can really damage a person.
Yeah.
There are some teachers, some in LA even, who will do this where, you stand at the front of a black box and people will say very personal insults at you to try to like break you down and like find that raw, very emotional place, in hopes that you will be able to like recall that later and use it as a tool.
Yeah, but you were also saying, I think you guys were saying that it's also used to show that, like, to when you walk onto set, that everyone's going to be judging you. And I was kind of flustered by, like, flabbergasted by that.
I may be a little bit sheltered from that particular approach.
Because that to me is like, well, obviously that's why we're not having relationships with newer actors on set, and why there's that breakdown of communication if that's what's being taught. Because that to me is insane.
That's crazy. And I feel awful for any actor who has experienced that and then goes onto set and believes that, because that is patently untrue.
Yeah, we're there. We are literally there to tell a story and support the actors in telling that story.
Yes. Wow. I guess I misunderstood the conversation, because that actually, I'm like worked up now that she was in a class that told her that.
She was in a class where they had her stand at the front, and because the two methods you explained make sense to me. It's like, if it's done in a safe way of like, look at the end, shake it off. But if it's done in a safe way, that makes sense, because I'm like, okay, I get it, recall, all that stuff. I can kind of get the explanation.
Yeah.
But to tell people like, oh, everyone's going to be judging you, you know, when you walk onto set, you should be prepared for that. And I'm like, we are literally hired to tell a story with you and support you and make sure you feel comfortable on set and make sure that in your most uncomfortable moments, you still feel safe.
Yes, that is incorrect. Whoever was teaching that should be sued and kicked out of town. Like,
yeah.
That's awful. Everyone is rooting for you. Not just because they want you to go do a good job, but also because they have to get the shot before lunch.
Yeah.
Like, everyone wants you to come there and do a great job. They are depending on you and they are rooting for you. Everyone is your best bud. Like,
and that's why, that's why for me, I'm like, oh, this is why it's important we're teaching this, because
I'm worked up.
Sorry. But this is why I'm like, it's so important we're teaching these courses and creating these classes for this platform, is because I want to make sure that actors are aware that even if you're not having conversations with us because you're working with a director that really likes to be just with you, that at the end of the day, we're there to support you. We're setting that eye light for your best moment based off of rehearsal. We're setting an eye line so you can be close to audience or not, and it's absent. We're changing lenses so we can feel further or closer. Like, everything is based off of the relationship that the technical has to the actor. And I hate the idea that someone is telling you that we don't support you based off of we're judging you.
Yeah.
It's just not true. And I'm really hoping we're able to change the game in that way.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. If anyone has ever told you that,
not true.
Kick them in the knees, or I don't know. Like, that's not true. Unless you're on maybe like a student film, it's early days.
We don't talk about student films.
Everyone has a big ego, and yes, maybe someone is jealous that you are doing that part, and they're like, only caveat. Otherwise,
no, a professional film set, that's not happening.
Everyone supports each other. Like, that's actually one of the most wonderful things about living here in Los Angeles. You hear all these stories before you move out. People tell you, oh, it's mean. It's a really rough place to live. It's not. It's dog eat dog. Everyone's trying to climb on top of each other to get to the top. And that's really not true.
It isn't. It isn't. It's like, there's a hustle mindset. Yes.
And everyone's working hard.
Yeah. But I mean, the more spiritual side of LA will tell you that's your shadow. So that's you being like, whatever you are judging in others is what you have an issue with yourself. And that's what you need to examine. But a lot of the time, people are pretty supportive. I mean, they might be envious because they're like, oh, I really wanted that. But at the same time, they're not being horrible to you because of that. That's them being like, next time,
I have experienced less gatekeeping, less like secret industry knowledge and treatment here than I did when I lived in Utah. Oh. It is so inclusive here. Everybody wants to help you. Like, if you anyone I've ever met on set who is like, hey, what do you want to do? If I've been a PA or whatever, anyone I've told the truth, it's like, I want to be an actor. They actively try to help me
and
however they can.
And they understand that trajectory and that path. Like, you know, they know that a lot of the time in LA, amongst the hierarchy, the lower positions in that power are always going to be at the top eventually. And that's something that I was taught, like, going into film as a DP, was always be polite to everyone, because at the end of the day, that PA is going to be your producer hiring you.
Things move really fast here because everyone hustles so hard. And you never know who your boss is going to be next year.
I have gotten jobs from directors who were once PAs that saw me work 5 years ago and now are directing their first film, and they're like, hey, can I interview you for DPing this? And I'm like, oh, okay, great. Yeah, I love that.
I honestly think that people who do try to come here and try to do, like the dog-eat-dog, like smarmy stuff, end up leaving because nobody wants to work with them. You can pick that up off of someone very quickly.
Yeah.
You spend so much time on set, so much time. You want to work with cool people, and you want to work with people who are nice and who support each other, because you have to work as a team.
This industry is all about relationships and connections, but that means not just like making that initial contact, but good connections. So having relationships where you want to hang out with someone 13 hours on set, like every day for months.
Yeah.
And, a lot of the time, maybe that's not the same case with actors, but there are a lot of directors who choose to work with the same actors for that reason, that they're good to work with and they like their ability to actually perform.
Yeah.
And I think that is something that, yeah, it's true. You move to LA and people are like, oh my God, it's very intimidating. It's very like, there's that dog-eat-dog. I went to my first ever actor event with you for We Audition.
Right? Yeah. Shout out. Use We Audition.
After a filming
It's my
day.
only online platform that has no cons.
Yeah, it's true.
It is the greatest.
That is in a freebie sheet we created for like online resources for actors that we will link below. But that Haley created based off of her experience of working with background, as well as like self-tape and submissions and casting and all that. So that's a really good freebie we just created, actually. But it's a good little plug.
You can find it on our website if you want it.
It's free. But yeah, I went to my first actor thing. I'm like very much on like the technical side, and I have been in this industry for a decade now. Started when I was 17, and this was like overseas. I was working in Bavaria and ended up going to this film festival in Poland. It's a long story, but at the end of the day, the biggest thing about my side of filmmaking, this world, is how much support we have, like vendor support, like other, like the crew that you hire support, other DPs, and like talking about lighting setups. I mean, it's like nerdy, but at the same time, it's just like a huge support, and you can always rely on people. And going to this actor event with you was such a different side of the industry. I felt like I was in some sort of movie for actors, where it was like you watch actors hang out in LA. Like, it was so different. You had to pay for your drinks, which is the first event I've been to in years where the drinks were not free. And I actively was like, oh, okay, thanks. And he's like, it's $10. And I'm like, oh, I didn't bring money. And he was like, it's fine, it's on me. I'm like, yeah, I'm not paying for a drink. I don't know. It sounds pretentious, but you get so used to like showing up at events because you're there to support the companies. You're showing face and you're there to support vendors and you, like, really pursue those relationships you've already established. And so to be in an event where I had to pay for drinks was very much like, what is this event for then? Like, why am I here? Yeah. But it was amazing to see actors in one area, like that many actors in one area. Like, it was like 400 or 500 people on a roof.
Yeah, it does unfortunately feel a little bit like there is less support for actors, because no vendors need an actor to be like, I only like these lenses, like there's too many of us to be able to do that. And I mean, acting schools want you to take their classes, but that's kind of like the only thing the actors can really be like.
But it didn't feel like community driven either, which was strange to me. I think we need more actor events that are like community driven, that are about just like supporting, and not like, let's find the nearest person that can help me, you know.
The SAG-AFTRA Foundation does do
great
a lot of that. It's I think We Audition is a different, it's, you know, it's not so much an like actor support platform. It's like a tool you can use, and they like to do these parties where I think the idea hopefully is the like actors will be able to mingle with casting directors or directors of films. But I think in the end the ratios are much more actor heavy, which is the kind of desperate feeling that you felt there. Is like
I felt
actors
tension.
going, where are the casting directors that promised they would be here?
I felt very like there was like this thick tension in the air of like everyone was having a conversation with each other, but you just saw these eyes darting away from the conversation constantly to see who was entering next. And I don't find that in my part. So I'm very excited coming out of the pandemic to take Hay to more of my parties and events, because our side of the industry is fun. We have free taco trucks and free platters that come around, and free drinks, and everyone just wants to like hang out and catch up on your personal life, you know. And if it ends up in getting a job, it ends up in you getting a job, but it's just about building relationships. It's not like, what immediately can you help me with? And yeah, Topanga Collective was started because I've been manifesting living in Topanga for like a year now. And I was there last week with one of my best friends, Lauren, and I sent Haley a video of a space that just opened up. It was like a female owned.
That place is so gorgeous.
Wellness space. But what it really is it's like a storefront at the front, and then at the back they have free co-working and on Tuesdays. But then they also have like the 70s sunken in living room, and I really hope
it's like a Kiva.
Oh, it's amazing. It's like a circular. Yeah. It's great. And they rent the space out, and one of my dreams now is to build Cinematography for Actors, the Topanga Collective, where we can host little events that feel more like the kind of events I'm used to going to as a DP, that are supportive and are like, just like, how is your life? How are you? Like, what are you working on? What are you excited about? Not like, what jobs are you applying to? What's the next thing I can get? That's kind of the community I think I want to build, to break down, like, once again, that like barrier that exists, I think, between departments.
I think that is really lovely that you want to do that. And I think I think it's possible, and I think it's necessary. You know, actors come here usually alone, and they get into an acting class where there are other actors taking class, and kind of like the main anxiety is like, oh my God, do you have an agent? Do you have a man? How did you get an agent? How, like, it feels very closed off. Even though you can submit for yourself, it's almost like there are like checkpoints, and it takes time. But a lot of actors are here without support of their parents, because a lot of families believe it's a pipe dream. Some have supportive parents, but they've given themselves, a number of years they have that they can be here to make it. And I think it's a little bit different on the crew side, because you can have a job and make money and work your way up.
Yeah.
And
stay in your field.
And you're in the field, you are on set every day making those connections. But as an actor, you're so far removed. So many actors work in restaurants, and that's not making connections on set. That's making connections with other people working in restaurants who may be actors and are also like, I don't know how we're gonna break ourselves in. Like, it's frustrating. And that's
forming those communities allows people that, even if you are working at a restaurant in LA, you have that community you can come back to and talk to from the get-go. Like, if, my dream is, because we're an online platform and we're accessible to people outside of an LA, we're not an LA acting class. We are like an international opportunity.
English-speaking world.
Worldwide. Yeah. I think the benefit of, you know, forming communities with us eventually, hopefully we can build that, is if there is an actor that moves to LA, they know they can come to us for that support. You know, they know they can form those relationships with people that already are a part of Cinematography for Actors and Topanga Collective. Maybe they can form their own meetups. I mean, this is my pipe dream. This is my dream.
It is not a pipe dream.
Okay. But
this is a thing that actors need. They need a place where they feel like they can go and people don't feel stressed out and desperate and like they have to grind and please. They can just go and meet a DP and hang out and find people who are cool and create a life that is nice before they get the roles.
Yeah.
I think a ton of actors just come, they grind it out, they live as cheaply as they can.
Yes.
And they're like, when I get that series regular, I will be happy.
You'll be set.
And it just can't work that way because the desperation comes off of you when you're in that situation. And when you have made yourself so unhappy because you're just dying to get it and you feel like no one wants it for you.
I just think that LA, if I had come to LA not knowing anyone from when I was in, you know, building my network early on, I moved to LA only like 4 years ago. And so I had a lot of those people for 6 years already in my life that lived in LA. And if I had come here and not known anyone, it's a really lonely town to not know anyone in because you're not really meeting people outside of the car. Like you are driving everywhere. You are just, LA is a very social city, but it's a social city when you have an appointment to get to and when you have a place to meet at. It's like everyone you know is going to want to hang out and be social because a lot of us are in hustle, like culture, hustle mindset. But if you don't have the people to meet, it's not, I don't find it social. I don't think people are willing to like come up to you at a cafe and like meet you if they're not trying to date you. You know, it's not like, oh, I see you're reading that book. Like, you know, there's not that walking culture that finds you a lot of organic friendships and relationships that a lot of other cities have. So I think having communities that are just supportive and like, hey, let's talk and hang out. Like I go to a lot of women's circles that my energy healer friend has. And I love that. I always meet women that are not in film. And I always love that because you feel this sort of connection that spreads across the city. Mm-hmm. And so I think people who don't know people in LA yet who move here, having that support would be, I think, of the utmost importance when landing here and getting advice.
Yeah. I want to make a quick note on the word network.
Yeah, sure.
Because yes, ultimately that's what it is.
Yeah.
But network and networking feel like such dirty words to me.
That's so funny. It's
because
the opposite
it's so associated with that feeling that we felt at that party of people just being like, who's here, who can help me? And it's not a deeper, I like the word you used, support earlier, because that's really what you need to be looking for here. And that's really what I hope that we can cultivate is a feeling of deep, supportive connections with people who care for you genuinely. And yes, maybe you'll end up working together, which like this happened so organically, but we cared for each other on a very like friendly level.
Yeah.
Like we were roller skating buddies.
She taught me to roller skate. Yeah.
Like it wasn't that I met Indy at a networking party and was like, oh, you're a DP? Oh my gosh.
We should talk.
Yeah. Let's do some stuff together. That's not the kind of networking that I hope to create between people. I want deep, meaningful, long-lasting connections that may result in something built together.
And it's funny because to me, that's the definition of networking.
Yeah.
Is the supportive thing. Because if I die tomorrow, I think there's one thing that people will say about me that I'm very proud of is that I'm a good networker. Just meaning like I really love to connect with people. And for me, the networking word doesn't feel dirty. It excites me, and it's the only reason I live in LA. When the pandemic shut everything down, I struggle to be here because I missed connecting with people so much. I miss, one person and that person knows one person and they bring them to a bar because you're like, hey, I'm hanging out here. Who wants to come? Or you're at like a networking event and that person introduces you to this person, or you introduce the person to that person that you think can connect. I mean, I hate that for some people it feels dirty, because to me it's so organic, and if done right, it's a really beautiful formation of skill set and personality and sharing experiences. And one of my keys to networking in LA when I go to things is, I mean, now it's easy because I know a lot of people. And so when I go there, I know I can like flock to someone that I see first and be like, hey, how are you? Like, how's the fam? Have you tried this new place? Whatever. But the thing that I find is like my biggest tip for networking if I don't know anyone is, and I actually learned this when I was 16 in etiquette school in Toronto.
Etiquette school in Toronto.
I learned, it was one class. My parents made me go, if that says anything about me as a teenager. But but in etiquette class, and I actually really like this, was that you can always find people at the bar or at the food tables, because those people are feeling awkward, and maybe they haven't eaten all day, but they also are feeling awkward, and they're more vulnerable to like talking. They're more open to having those conversations. And so at the beginning, I would always just go up to the food table, and I love food anyway, but I would just go up and I would be like, oh, have you tried them? Or like, oh, like,
hey, that's good.
Yeah.
What's that?
Yeah. I'd be like, oh, I haven't had that. Is that one good? Is that good? Oh, cheese selection's okay. Like just commenting about that. It's like the weather kind of conversation you would have in an elevator, but that normally leads to, if they respond enough, you then go in with the name, and you go in like, oh, hi, I'm Indiana. Like, are you in film as well? Are you a DP as well? Are you, and then you're already giving a piece of information that's your own, but they didn't ask yet. So it's not like, oh, hi, I'm Indiana, I'm a DP. It's like, oh, hi, I'm Indiana. Are you a DP as well? Like, are you here? How do you know everyone here? Like, and then it's like, oh, I know that person. And then you already know that they pointed to someone whose name you now know and will probably get introduced to if they come over, because they've already talked about them, So it's like, it's so organic. And the biggest thing I think is just not talking about film, or not talking about acting if it's an acting event. Talking about like, oh, where do you guys live? Or like, oh yeah, no, I roller skated here. And like, and then they'll be like, oh, you roller skate? You're like, yeah, I picked up so many hobbies during the pandemic. And I'd be like, do you pick up hobbies? If they don't respond and they're nervous.
Do you pick up hobbies?
Did you pick up hobbies during the pandemic? There's just so many things to talk about that I think people are so against talking just about like, what are you working on? To more like, hey, how are you doing? Or like, what hobbies are you interested in? If you don't have hobbies, that's okay. Talk about yours. And my favorite thing to talk about right now is mead, because I started making mead during the pandemic.
Mead.
MEAD. Mead. It's a honey wine.
Honey wine.
And it's going to become very popular again soon, guys. Not just outside of the medieval fairs that I have, the Ren fairs or whatever that I haven't been to. It will become popular.
Yeah, though I feel like the word mead has become synonymous with Ren Fair.
It is, yes. That's how people like a Ren Fair. I'm like, I haven't been. Okay,
I've never been. I just like honey.
Yeah. But I'm just like, so I started making my own mead, which is like a 27% alcohol, and I bring it to parties. But even when people are like, oh yeah, like, what have you gotten up to? It's like, well, I just finished a batch of mead. And then people are like, what is mead? And then you have this conversation that someone comes in to the conversation. Oftentimes, a new person that comes in, that person that I just told about mead is like, this person makes mead. And they're like, what? What's mead? And you start the whole process again. There's just such a community building associated with network for me that isn't just like, film, nice to meet you. What, you're an actor? Oh, that's cool. What have you worked on? What classes are you taking? It's like, who are you as a person is what I want to get into and break down immediately, because people want to be vulnerable when you are vulnerable with them.
Yeah.
And so let's dispel the dirty word of networking and make it a positive, safe space, because it's fun. And I think people want to open up. They live in LA. They want to open up. Like, they want to network. That's there. You don't have to worry. If they showed up at that party, if they showed up at that event, they wanted to meet people.
Yeah.
Because that's what LA is.
Oh, that's so true. If they showed up at that damn party, they want to meet people.
They're not going to a rooftop and paying $15 for parking and like eating pretty crappy hors d'oeuvres to just be there. Yeah. Yeah. They are
very good.
But they're there because they want to meet people. And if you have to start that off, you start it off. We had one very sweet girl come up to us at the party. It was a little intense.
It was a little intense.
It was a lot of
She had the best intentions.
But it was obvious, yeah.
She screamed at us. She was so sweet. She was right. She did that, and we were like, whoa. And then she said, sorry, it's so hard and it's so awkward, and you just have to run up to someone and say, hi, this is me, who are you?
Which is amazing because, like I said about being vulnerable, if you're vulnerable, people are like, I like that. I will also break down that wall with you and be vulnerable back a lot of the time. And if they're not, walk away from the conversation.
That is really where her charm was. Is she took us way off guard.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, thank you. And then she was like, sorry, it's awkward and hard, and that's just how I do it. And we were immediately like, we'll talk to you for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
We're Instagram friends now.
And within a week, I was shooting a film after that, and I offered her a role in that film because the director was looking for extras in a classroom scene, and she was talking about how she was doing background a lot, and it was like a paid thing. And I was like, I texted her I DM'd her on Instagram and was like, hey, do you want to come out for this? So it's like, I mean, that's how simple it is I was like, oh wait, I just met that person.
I just met a person. But yeah, I think that we kind of skimmed over something really quickly where you said, go to the food table, go to the bar. That's where you can find people who are feeling uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. And that is something that, not in the sense of networking, but just in the sense of like going to a house party even, or just any kind of thing where there are people who don't know each other. I've spent a number of years trying to train myself to find the uncomfortable people and make them feel welcome instead of focusing on myself and how I feel in an awkward situation. And I have never put together that I've usually done that at the bar.
Well, I can give you 4 ways in which you can start to talk to people very easily.
Do it. Let's give it to everybody.
Okay. So 1 is the food table, food and drinks, the bar. Either they know someone and they actually just wanted to get food, but if they didn't want to meet someone, they would have brought that person they're with to the table with them to have a conversation. 2, if someone wants to talk to you based off of their body language, how open their shoulders are. So if they're in like a group of 4 people and all of them are facing inward towards each other, they're not looking to add another person. But if one of them is starting to face away naturally, that means that they are open to other people coming. If it's a group of 3 or 4 of them, but they're all facing outward, it means they're totally open and not locked into that conversation. That's like one of my fun ones, I think. And then, as well, when you're at the food table, you can tell if people want to talk to you because naturally they will always make sure a hand is free. So if they're holding like a plate, they'll make sure to hold the drink and the plate a lot of the time in one hand.
So they can shake.
So they can shake hands. Or that they can just kind of like have a conversation, have like that natural ability to like really like spew off the conversation.
Did you learn all of this at etiquette school?
No, I read a body language book when I was like 17 that was all about like networking and body language. And this is what I remembered. I was trapped at a house all summer, and none of my friends were around, and just went to the library. No, like my parents just wanted me to spend the summer up at this cottage, and none of my friends were around yet because they just bought the property, and all I had was the library. So
all you had was a book on how to meet people.
Yeah, from the library. It was like a 1,000-page book about like body language, and it was fantastic, but also just like, what is my life trying to do this at 17 or 16?
Do you remember what that book was called?
No, I'll try and find it though. It was fun. It was a really good book. I love the physiological aspect of it.
It seems like it could be a really great resource.
It was great.
For actors for all kinds of reasons. Yeah. Studying at body language for a role, or studying body language for meeting people.
And I think one of the last things I'll say is to put everyone at ease when they go to networking events is, so a lot of the time when you go to a networking event or like a vendor event or a sponsored event, you know that those people are probably coming because they work in film or they work in the specific thing that the event is for. Mm-hmm. And the difference I'm terrible at house parties a lot of the time, because the thing I benefit from at our networking events is I know everyone's involved in film. So I know regardless of everything, even if we don't get along on any other level, I know that they work in film, I work in film, or they like film enough to work in it. Because our industry is like, we work in it because we wanted to work in it. It's like a passion thing. It's not like, oh, I'm trying to get out of corporate. It's like, no, I work in film because like I chose this career path. And so regardless, you always have that thorough line of like, I can talk about film. Whereas any other like a house party, you don't know what they're interested in. You literally could have nothing in common. They could hate film and you could love film. Like, but at the end of the day, whatever sponsored event you go to or networking event, they use that platform. They use We Audition or someone they know does, So there's always something, a baseline you can talk about if you find it's going flat before you have to exit that convo and pawn them off to someone else. That's one of my favorite things is like when you're like know someone else and you can just be like, hey, you both are actors. I'll be right back. And then you leave. And then they end up talking to each other and maybe they actually have something in common and it works out. If not, you've gotten out of that conversation. Networking is really fun. I so enjoy it. It is such a game for me. And it's how I know so many beautiful, fantastic people in this industry. Some who I've never worked with, but some who I just like really love to see at events. I wouldn't hang out with them outside of an event, but I love having conversations and catch-ups.
Hopefully, one day we can have events where people have done their homework and studied how to network, and it'll just be a really great experience.
I mean, I think we would be able to host events where people wouldn't even have to study it because we would be just so open and involved with everyone. That's my dream.
As a community.
Yeah, it's Topanga Collective. I look forward to welcoming an audience to our platform just because I really do want to be that support system for a lot of people that feel lost when they walk onto set, especially if I'm an advocate from a technical perspective.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, any director who's listening or any directors that we've talked to, they just want to make sure that we're not interrupting their relationship they're having with the actors. And that's definitely not what we're doing. We're working behind the scenes to prepare actors so that when they walk onto set, they have a choice. They can say, I am overwhelmed by this performance. I do not want to use the technical today, but I know what it is subconsciously.
Mm-hmm.
Or I can handle both because I've learned both. I'm not trying to change the way you work on set in a way of like, talk to the DP more, talk to your camera assistants more. I'm just trying to change how prepared you feel from a technical perspective so that when you know everything, when you know your lines, when you know your performance, you've rehearsed with your character and your director, it's like you step onto set and you're like, oh yeah, eyeline. Last minute, I know, where's my eyeline mark? Oh, that light, I should really land for that moment, for that beat, for that motivation. It's fun.
It really is just one more facet of your preparation.
Yeah.
You memorize, you learn your lines.
Yeah.
You throw them away, you know they're there. You don't step on set and panic about that because you know your lines. You've done all of your internal character work. You step on set, it's there. Yeah. You don't have to worry. And this really is something that can become that. Right now, you step onto set and you start panicking about like, where's my coverage camera? Is my shoulder open? But you will be able to practice that too and prepare that too, so that when you step onto set, you can throw it all away, including the technical. And that's really the goal, is to create actors who step onto set and a director doesn't have to go, don't say anything about marks to them. Yeah. They tell you exactly what they want technically and character-wise, and they roll it, and you're fantastic. And there's no overwhelming feeling of, shit, I don't know what this means.
Jay Holben, one of the directors on our Roundtable, and who's like a dear friend of mine, he's like the sweetest man on earth. He's a huge, huge supporter of just like facilitating a safe space on set for actors and for crew, and making sure everyone feels heard and respected while still employing his vision as a director. When I told him about our original concept before getting involved in our Roundtable and stuff like that, he was like, oh, have you seen the Michael Caine YouTube video on acting for camera? And I was like, no. He's like, it's like lots like that. It doesn't encompass everything.
It's pretty.
Do actors know about that? Is that like a known thing?
I think that theater actors who trained in like a conservatory style program, or actors who have actively looked for something like that, know about it. It is pretty widely known.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
I wouldn't say all, but most.
What I really loved, because I'm learning a lot of things like from an acting perspective, even though I never want to act because it's too difficult. But I'm learning a lot from you. We're teaching each other.
We are teaching each other.
But one of the cool things I learned from that video that I was like, oh, that's fun, is so you have your end mark that you need to land on, and so to help like land on marks, you say your line, you do it backwards. and wherever you start is where you start.
Yeah.
And so you know you're going to land on your mark naturally without having to look down, because you know that at the end of the line, your pace is... Yeah. And I was like, I love that.
That's kind of like, I have a problem with trying to squeeze too many letters into a space when I'm writing.
Oh.
So I'll write the word backwards from
funny.
the end of the line.
Oh, cool.
So that it
Sounds fun.
it doesn't get too long.
Love that.
I'm a freak.
Yeah, I love it. It's great. We need people to have quirks in this space. That's what makes us unique. But one of the things I wanted to talk about as well was how excited we are to launch not only the courses, but our community, the drop-in.
We've planned a community for you.
We've planned a community hosted on Circle SO, but it's pretty much like a forum that would be like a membership forum where you can talk about like moving to LA, or you can talk about your wins, the self-tapes you're excited about, or questions you have, technical questions that pertain to the courses, or things you had happen to you on set already that you need other actors or us to respond to. And I'm really excited for us to launch that eventually, in the next few months. We're just starting like our wireframe template of it at the moment, but it's going to be, I think it'll be that community until we have that in-person basis. Like, I think it will be a really sweet thing to have.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. It's very exciting.
So, hey, I think let's start wrapping it up, but I want you to tell me what you're excited about as an actor in LA right now. What classes are you excited about? What things as an actor in LA there is to be excited about?
Okay. I mean, this, of course, is like right now a huge part of something that I'm excited for. Yesterday morning, I was walking a dog that I was babysitting before we had to shoot something. I'm thinking, I'm living my dream life. I am going to work with a close friend every day, and we're shooting things. That's incredible.
Yeah.
That's so amazing. I had time to get up and walk the dog before I had to go
set your own schedule.
It was pretty incredible. I am also really excited because I'm taking a beginning singing lesson.
Oh, yeah.
I have always been very embarrassed to admit. I don't know where this shame came from. It was maybe high school. High school's a mean, awful place. I mean, I had it easy, but high school can be very mean and awful. I've always been very embarrassed to admit that I love musical theater.
Yes.
And so I didn't study musical theater. I went to straight theater. They call it straight theater. I don't know if that is a term that you should use. I don't know if it's a bad term. I don't know. It's straight theater, not musical theater, acting school. And there was a musical theater school adjacent, and I was always a little bit jealous of those kids because they got to learn how to sing and dance. And I just always thought musicals looked like so much fun, but I just never allowed myself to explore that for some reason. So I decided this year I'm going to admit that I love musical theater and I want to be in a musical, multiple musicals, and I'm going to learn how to sing because it's never too late.
That's amazing.
That's the biggest thing that I'm most excited about right now.
I love it. I'm so happy we were able to do just a first episode. It was so important for Haley and I to, in addition to our courses, it's expensive to be an actor, and we wanted to make sure that we have enough free content as well to build that community and make it accessible to the widest possible audience. So we have our Instagram, our TikTok, and now the podcast that all have, daily tips that actors are using and learning. And, we're just starting. So we just reached past 500 followers organically, which I'm very excited about.
Which we're celebrating.
Yeah, and it already seems like we have a loyal audience because I've seen some of the same faces pop up liking things and favoriting and commenting. And we have a wonderful social media manager, Eli, who responds to a lot of those comments. And it's really exciting to see that growth.
Yeah, we're so grateful for everyone who's following along. And excited and supportive of us. Like,
Yeah.
we really are striving and, dream to build a community that feels supportive and not judgmental and, just glad to see other people succeed. And we are already seeing that from people who have found our content and, watch it and like it. And I hopefully are getting a lot of really good information that's helpful for them. Just like so grateful. Like, that's incredible. That's amazing.
If you head to our Instagram, our link in bio is a pre-sale sign up for 40% off all of our courses. So we'll link that below as well. So that when we do launch in middle of September, date TBD, but probably September 20th, a hard launch soon. We want to get it out because it's like we've been working so hard and we're so excited about like hearing the response.
We have all this stuff for you now.
So we'll link that. And then if you are interested in the courses and learning about the technical and becoming involved with the Topanga Collective and Cinematography for Actors, you can sign up and you'll get a 40% off for when we launch on the individual course payments. So thank you so much. We're so excited that we were able to do this.
Oh my gosh, guys, we're so excited.
And I'm Indiana, and this is Haley, and we are the Topanga Collective.
Bye.
Bye.